Facebook launched Novi this week, Novi, which is a payments app. A big goal of cryptocurrency. How can we send value? How can we send money cross borders with no fees or very low fees and make it as easy as sending an email? Why isn't it as easy to send money in the digital age as it is to send an email? That's one of the goals of cryptocurrency. And right now, it's not really there. Facebook is aiming to address that. Novi has no fees. You can send it. It's currently in limited beta. You can either be in Guatemala or the U.S. There's a lot of remittances that flow from the U.S. to Guatemala, so that's why they started with that partnership. But there's zero fees. You can send money cross-border, zero fees. As far as I know, it's the only project like that, and it's an experimentation at this point. I have questions about how it's built on Ethereum, but I have questions about how it's actually implemented, and we're going to dive into that. So let's get into the details. And I actually started. I've played with it. You're welcome to sign up if you're based in the U.S. or Guatemala. I think you need a U.S. or Guatemala number. I'm sure that's part of the verification. Plus, you have to take a photo of your ID. There's certain regulations they have to follow. So not anyone can you can't just sign up. It's like you're creating an email account, right? You actually need to prove your identity. So they are following the know KYC, know your customer rules, things like that. But you can think of it. It's just like Venmo, very similar to Venmo. Although Venmo, I don't know. I don't like using Venmo. It's not a great app. It's like Venmo, except you can send cross-border. Venmo only works in the U.S., right? So it's very similar to that. You can find people by contacts. I've sent a few transactions back and forth using it, and it works. It's fast. You can attach a message to your transactions, and it's an interesting project. And I'm really curious about this project specifically because right now Ethereum fees are high. I just checked to send USDC, at least in the Coinbase wallet, the estimated miner fee to send USDC to someone was a $47 miner fee. And then to send even just regular Ether, an Ether transaction on the Ethereum blockchain, just send someone Ether, was $8. Now, regardless, $40, it's way too high for, if you're having to pay $8, that's up there with, it's up there with regular transfer fees and just with the old system. Now, probably a little lower than that, but still, that's too high. That's why, as we've talked about on the show, there's other solutions. There's layer 2 solutions, which allow you to build systems on top of the blockchain. It's not as secure, but it does some things that allow transactions to go more quickly. And then what it does is it batches them up and then puts them on the blockchain all at once rather than write to them as they happen. So there's different ways that we can address this problem. Plenty of different strategies here. But I like that Facebook's experimenting in this space. So you may remember that a while back, several years ago, they announced their intent to create a cryptocurrency, a blockchain project that would allow a payment platform, right? Strictly focused on that. So there's different types of blockchains. Some are focused on different things. Your Ethereums of the world, smart contract platform. You're trying to build applications on top of it. That's what it allows you to do. Now, what Libra was, that was Facebook's original name for their cryptocurrency project. Now it's called Diem, D-I-E-M. So they've rebranded it, renamed it, and they actually have been, they've been kind of dragging their feet a little bit on it. And I think because there's a lot of regulators in the United States, regulators all over the world, bureaucrats all over the world, have gotten pissed off at them. They're like, well, what are you doing? We don't know what you're doing with this. We're afraid that you're gonna do something fucked up. And frankly, and for good reasons, governments want, one of the main jobs of government is to protect the financial system in that country. And if a private company becomes a huge player in that space, they want to make sure that this company isn't doing anything nefarious. So I get that. I get the reasoning. But Facebook, they did a little rebrand with Diem. I don't know what the reason for that rebrand was. I don't know if it was because Libra had had a bad name. I don't even think anyone knew what the Fook Libra was. Anyway, most people haven't even heard of it. But it's an interesting project, and I'm always down for experimentation in this space. But this is the first time that they've actually released. Let me be clear. This is separate from that project. So they're trying to create a whole platform that allows cross-border payments, low fees, no fees, and that is a huge undertaking, and it's a separate thing. It's going to be backed. Diem's going to be backed. It's going to be a stable coin, but it's going to be backed by, sounds like a basket of different currencies, and backed by short-term treasury bonds, probably some commercial paper, short-term corporate debt. So low-risk stuff that will prevent the actual value of the coin from swaying that much. The values, because right now Bitcoin either they're not tied to an underlying asset, right? So they flow. The rate at which they move in value up and down is quite volatile, and it doesn't work if you're trying to use it as a payment system, right? If it's just not as, I'm not going to send someone $20 worth of Bitcoin when the value of it is constantly changing. So $20 worth of Bitcoin if they buy me a sandwich or something like that, right? I'm going to use Venmo. So it's an interesting. That's an interesting project, but they're not using this. Novi is actually built on top of Ethereum, and I tweeted at David Marcus. David Marcus is the head of Facebook Financial, and he's been. I actually respect his tweets. He'll often talk about, he'll share a little bit under the hood of how they think about the payments at Facebook and things like that. But there's still some unanswered questions here. What we do know is it's using a U.S. dollar-backed stable coin, by Paxos, which is the USDP. So it's the Pax dollar. Similar, we've talked about it on the show before. Similar to USDC, similar to Tether, which Tether I don't personally trust. I don't trust. There's a lot of shady stuff around there. But similar idea to those coins. It's a stable coin backed by assets, backed by low volatility assets, low risk assets, and there's an attestation every month. I think every month US Paxos releases basically an external accounting firm releases a report on what assets they have backing the coins that they're putting out there. So another piece of this is they're actually Facebook has partnered with Paxos, which is it's a regulated stablecoin. They've also partnered with Coinbase for custodial services. So Coinbase has a bunch of different products. You might know it as you go into Coinbase, you buy cryptocurrency. They also have institutional targeted features. So they have custodial features where they will help manage storing cryptocurrency on your behalf. So they're partnered with Coinbase. That much we do know. We know it's built on Ethereum. We know it's using the Ethereum blockchain. Now, as I said earlier, it's $8. It's fucking $40, whatever it is. It's too expensive. If I had to send $5 in fees to use it, it's like that's gonna be a pain. It's a non-starter for a lot of people, especially those sending remittances, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So we don't know. So we know it's on Ethereum. They've released that. We don't know how. And I've used it. I've used it with a few people, and I've sent them $1. They've sent me $1 back. Things like that. We don't know. I don't know if it's actually hitting the blockchain. I don't think it is because it's happening instantly. I think that I don't know if they're using a layer 2 solution, a proprietary layer 2 solution that they've built. We don't know anything about what the underlying tech is. The website Novi is there's not even a white paper around it. A white paper is a technical description of a project. There's not much information on it. So I'm a little unclear on how they're doing this. For all I know, they just have, a bunch of U.S. denominated dollars in in an account in Guatemala. They have some in the U.S. and then they're just transferring. I don't think they're doing that, but I have no idea. I'm very curious how this is working, because if I send someone $1, there's no way they're hitting the Ethereum blockchain, because they're going to be paying $8 in fees or whatever the fees happen to be, which are high for every transaction. There's no way they're eating that cost. I wonder how they're doing it. And if you can tweet it, David Marcus, I'm like, bro, tell us what's the deal here. So I'm curious about that, but let's take a step back. Let's quickly talk about where they're rolling this out. So they're rolling it out in the United States and Guatemala. And the reason for that is I'm going to read, this is from David Marcus's tweet thread. 56% of people lack access to financial services in Guatemala, despite nearly 100% having mobile phones. Now, this is a gap. This gap is why I think cryptocurrency can be so powerful. A lot of people have phones. A lot of people don't have access to mobile phones and internet. And a lot of people don't have access to financial services, don't have a bank account. I think cryptocurrency, if done properly, can fill that gap. Money sent from family and friends abroad contributes more than 14%. More than 14% of GDP in Guatemala is from money sent abroad. And 90% of those remittances come from the U.S. That's crazy. That's like a crazy high amount. And the way you do it right now, it's high fees. I think the leader in this space, and I don't know, you can do a regular bank transfer, pain in the ass. I think it's probably like $30 or something like that, $20, Western Union. I think it's on the order of that. Yeah, that's high fees. And if you're talking about sending your family back $200 a month or something like that, you're talking about a significant percentage that is going to the old financial guard that is doing a dog shit job of efficiently transporting your money. And a lot of it's not on the companies, a lot of it's the regulation around it and things like that. I get that, but it's just, we can do better than this. We have the tech, we can do better than this. And so Novi's launching in Guatemala and the United States, limited. So it's a limited release. They're just trying to test the pipes. They're just trying to see how this works. So I haven't transferred any money to folks in Guatemala, but I have play with a couple homies in the U.S. But what's interesting about this, I think, yeah, it's just the fact that the fact that just the amount, the high percentage that is going to the old financial guard in fees and not going directly in people's pockets. I think that's a real issue, and I think it's a notable issue that they're tackling here. And so one thing I think that is often overlooked in these discussions is okay, well, why don't they just use Bitcoin or something, like even fees alone? I think of Bitcoin, you still have to pay $3-4 in fees to send Bitcoin. Okay, if I send someone Bitcoin, they have a wallet on their phone, they have internet on their phone. What do they do with that Bitcoin when I send it if I have my family member in Guatemala? What do they do with it? Well, they can't buy bread with it. They can't go. They maybe could, but your average store does not cover that. You got to live in the real world here. Most stores, most people do not know how to transact with Bitcoin. They will not sell you something for Bitcoin. It's just not how the world works. So what you need to do is somehow convert that Bitcoin into fiat currency, the local government issued currency. So you can actually pay rent. You can actually buy things and transact with it. So what's cool about Novi is that you can either, to actually, I said upload money into it. That's so funny. To actually deposit money into it, I just had to connect a debit card and deposited $10 into it. And then I can withdraw to that debit card as well. Now, in Guatemala, you can do the same thing, but you can also, let's say I have people in Guatemala I'm trying to send money to. I send it to them. They can, if they don't have a bank account, and this is where the rubber really hits, right? If they do have a bank account, then great, boom, no fees. They can withdraw to their bank account. That's great. But what if they don't have a bank account, but they do have a phone and they do have an internet connection and they do have this wallet? They do have the Novi app. Well, Novi's partnering with convenience stores in Guatemala. So you can go to a convenience store and actually get your money withdrawn that way. I have no idea how this process actually looks. I don't know if there's fees associated there. I don't think there are. I think they would mention that. But that's a big piece of this. You can go to a convenience store and you can get the cash right there. So I wonder if the people in the convenience stores are being compensated somehow. I don't know, but that's a big piece of this, is them being able to convert without a bank account, convert this US dollar-backed coin into local currency. So I think it's a really cool project. I'm interested to see where it goes. I think it's going to expand. I mean, I always think about this, even Fukin in Europe, transferring money to people when I was on the Fukin hike in the PCT. People from out of the country, Fukin Canada and Europe, and transferring money is an absolute joke. Then not everyone has Venmo. And if they do have Venmo's US only, so how do you can use PayPal and get fleeced on fees? Just dog shit experience. So I'm really interested in this space because I think it's one area where people can immediately feel that, okay, this is better than the old system. There's a lot of things in cryptocurrency like, is this better? This is like, okay, no fees, you can send money anywhere and withdraw, boom, no fees. That is very clear and hits you hard, hits you right in the gut. So I'm very curious to see how this projects like this work, and I'm very curious. I'm always looking at projects where it's like people are actually going to use this and it's actually be valuable right now, today. Now there's a lot of pie in the sky stuff, but you need the pie in the sky stuff to actually build the future. You need that. I absolutely hold space for that, but you also need things that people are going to use today, right now, to validate the technology. So let's talk a little bit more about the technology. So this is using an ERC20 token. An ERC20 token on the Ethereum blockchain means that, well, I'll just read it. So first of all, ERC, anytime you see that, it's an Ethereum request for comment. It's basically a proposal um, uh, a proposal that, oh, hey, we want to do this thing, and then it's a request for comment. You can comment on the on the particular issue that they're talking about. In this case, this was ERC20. That's why it's named ERC20. It's basically an improvement proposal. But then they have EIP, Ethereum Improvement Proposal. So I don't know how those differ, but let me define it. The following standard allows ERC20. The following standard allows for the implementation of a standard API for tokens within smart contracts. This standard provides basic functionality to transfer tokens as well as allow tokens to be approved so they can be spent by another on-chain third party. So why is ERC20 so important? It's because if I have a wallet app and it's ERC20 compatible, then that means if my coin is ERC20 compatible, I don't have to manually, as the wallet provider, I don't have to manually account, oh, I need to add this coin, this coin, this coin, this coin. If they all follow a certain standard, then my wallet supports all of them automatically. So it's a very powerful thing in the Ethereum space. It allows you to take your tokens with you off of any exchange, off of any wallet, move them with you to other layer 2 solutions, and move them around easily without having to worry about whether it's going to be compatible. So it's definitely a very important part of the Ethereum ecosystem. So let's talk about quickly, what do you actually have to implement if you're going to issue a token and you want to be ERC20 compatible? Let's get in the nitty gritty here. I was looking at the developer doc. So some optional things you have to provide are the name, symbol, and decimals. So the name of the cryptocurrency, the name of the token, the symbol of the token, and how many decimals it can be divided into. Those are optional. Things that are not optional, and this was actually, now that I think about this, this was in the request for comment. I don't know if this is the final standard, but this is just an example of just to get the brain flowing. So it's things you have to are required: the total supply, a balance of functions. So you need to be able to tell a user how much of it they have. A transfer function. You need to be able to allow people to transfer it, and then transfer from. Now I don't know what the transfer from off the top of my head is. Just copy down the function name, but you get the idea of what are some of the things that you need to implement if you want to be ERC20 compatible. So this is it's in ERC20 compatible token, which is the United, the Paxos dollar is ERC20 compatible, which means, well, it means all the things I just described. So that's really important. Just like we talked about WorldCoin last episode, that is going to be ERC20 compliant. All these projects launching, again, this is why I always think about, where are all the projects launching? Which blockchain? Now, there's some up-and-comers, Solana, your Polkadots, but still Ethereum is where everything is being launched. Until I see something that's why I'm focusing on Ethereum, because that's where the new shit's launching right now, and that's what I'm following. That's where the people are actually using things. Okay, so there's a lot of interesting projects. I encourage a lot of experimentation in the space, but I have a limited amount of time, and I've been following Ethereum mostly for that reason. Okay, let's quickly talk about the. Oh, well, okay, so you may ask, okay, well, what's in this for Facebook? Let's talk about the business model. What's in this for Facebook? Why would they, Novi, no transaction fees? How do they make money? So their plan, they're transparent about this. They share this. Their plan is to zero fees for person to person, similar to Venmo, person to person, zero fees. But they're going to charge for merchant fees and undercut, charge for merchant fees, so if you're selling something cross-border. But I'm sure they're going to undercut the, your credit card fees of 2.9%, or they'll probably go maybe 1%, 1.5%, something like that. Undercut it. So, and it'll probably be faster as well. The money will actually settle faster as well. So that's the business model here. So as soon as they release this, U.S. Democratic Senators Brian Schatz, Sherrod Brown, Richard Blumenthal, Elizabeth Warren, and Tina Smith voiced their opposition to Facebook's 2-year-old effort to launch a cryptocurrency digital wallet. Facebook. So this was just as of October 19th. Facebook is once again pursuing digital currency plans on an aggressive timeline and has already launched a pilot for a payments infrastructure network. Even though these plans are incompatible with the actual financial regulatory landscape, the senators wrote in a letter to Facebook Chief Executive Mark Zuckerberg. Facebook cannot be trusted to manage a payment system or digital currency when its existing ability to manage risk and keep consumers safe has proven wholly insufficient, the senators wrote. So I think it's an easy target right now to just say, how can Facebook be trusted? They knowing with our money when you can't even trust them to, as they say, keep consumers safe has proven wholly insufficient. So Facebook gets a lot of heat. Everyone's just blaming everything on Facebook. there's been a lot of controversy around Facebook. It's making people depressed, and then the Cambridge Analytica scandal, which I think is one of the most misunderstood things. Facebook had open APIs. Maybe they were a little too open, but they were also, going back and looking at these conversations, they opened up their API to allow people to get data out of there. And that was one of the things people called for, so they didn't just trap all the data so people can compete with them and they could take their data out of Facebook. And then this is one of the unintended consequences of that. Cambridge Analytica was able to harvest a bunch of data on individuals because they pulled it out from the API that was called on to Facebook. People called on Facebook, make it more open, give us data, and then boom, third party could get it, boom. Now, so and after once this Cambridge Analytica thing actually broke, and I don't want to go on a tangent, I'm going to only talk about this for 10 more seconds. The APIs that allowed them to do this had been closed for like a couple years. So it's just interesting. Anyway, there's to me, the social media landscape, fake news, it's all very nebulous. It's hard to determine what is true and what is false, relatively. I'm not saying truth, and there are such things as facts. Let's not overdo it here. But it's a hard problem. It's a nebulous thing, like data, people that are selling your data. It's just all very with financial shit. It's very like, okay, there's heavy regulation around it. There's very clear regulation around it. It's do you know who's transacting on your system? Okay, you have to verify your identity. I have to verify my identity. Is it using money laundering? There's certain, there's basic questions that have yes, no answers and that you can account for that has been solved many, many times. Plenty of companies start in this space and they know how to solve these problems. So I think them just saying, oh, Facebook can't be trusted to do this. Okay. No, I don't buy it. I think that, I think there needs to be a lot more experimentation in this space. I think if every single company waited for congressional approval to do anything, we would still be in the fucking Stone Age. So I'm totally in support of them experimenting in this space. They're not, doing anything with your data here. I haven't actually read the terms of service, but Facebook knows they're walking on a fucking tightrope. They're using this for payments. This is, I don't think they're doing anything sketchy here. They're just trying to provide a service here, and I'm always interested in companies experimenting in the space. Quickly though, the fees, the max transaction size is $300 USD. The daily send, the max daily send is 1,000. The monthly send receive is 10,000. The daily add is 2,500. The daily withdrawal is 2,500. The maximum balance you can have is 1,000. So these are all small numbers. So this is definitely a very, pilot mode. I think Venmo is like 5,000 a week or something. That's pretty low too. So these are small numbers. You're not going to be able to, transfer a shit ton here, but it's a start. I'm going to be following this project. David Marcus, head of financial at Facebook. Very interested to see what him and his team do. I'll be following this very closely. Very interested in this because again, here's an example of a project that is very clear. I need to send money cross-border, and it's going to take no fees. But if I use this other thing that's not cryptocurrency-based, it costs me fees. That's very clear. There's a very clear value proposition here. In my business, we pay people cross-border, and the fees can fleece you. They're not crazy high, but damn it, it's like it would be better if that money was in our pocket or the people we work with pocket. Why does it have to, if we can solve that problem, that would be a great thing. So this is a very real thing that it's a very real, and remittances are huge, in the billions and billions of dollars per year. If you can remove transaction fees on that, it's going to make humanity more efficient, make the economy more efficient. It's just going to be a better product. So I'm very interested in real world applications and pie in the sky shit like WorldCoin, which we talked about. I like both, but you need to have both. Okay, you can't just go full pie. You can't go full. What do we do right now today? You need to have some vision and you need to have some reality. So, very interested in this project. I'll be following it closely. Thank you for listening. Dick Lucas here. This is the No Gradient Podcast. Find it wherever podcasts are available. Just search No Gradient. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Apple Podcasts, please rate, comment, subscribe. I greatly appreciate it. Also on YouTube, also on Twitter and Instagram, Dixie Lucas. You can follow me there. Also on TikTok, Dick Lucas, where I just post like a 30-second blurb of what I'm going to be talking about, just the first 30 seconds of the podcast. Also subscribe, like on YouTube. Would really appreciate that. That'll help the show out. Thank you so much for listening. And cryptocurrency, crazy, crazy stuff, man. This is so interesting. Thank you for listening. Great riffing on this. And have a good fucking weekend, baby.